All right, Camp Kid Jam, as you can tell, is going to rock. It's going to be incredible. And deposits are due on I say deposits. Listen to me. Deposits have already been due in March. This is the April podcast. The balance is due April the 20th. It's because we have to pay these folks because we have a deadline for spots being filled up. And there's a waiting line, folks. There's so many people who want to go to this that there's lines of people. And so, we got to turn over our spots if we don't have them filled up by then and all that kind of good stuff. So April the 20th, we got to have your balance due so we know that you're coming. And hey, I got another great idea. If you're watching this and you can scholarship some kids or some leaders, we would love for that to happen. That would be absolutely incredible.
That would be cool.
Cool. All right. Next thing, you know what I would love you to do? Check out the newsletter. Diane Harris does an incredible job of putting this thing together every month.
Great.
Yeah, there's activities in there for kids. There's stuff in there for parents. There's a letter from yours truly, which that and $1.25 will get you a cup of coffee at Waffle House. Well, no, at Waffle House. I was going to Waffle House because Starbucks has got that cheap coffee now, though. Yes. Have you seen that, like for $1?
And they're promoting a free refill with that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
But in certain areas.
Okay, so it's limited, kind of, not just any Starbucks.
The word is that if they start doing that, John Gilbert's going to quit going because it won't be cool anymore.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I hate that for them. Somebody might want to give them a heads up.
Yeah.
Because, that man has sent like many of Starbucks employees' children through college. Yeah, wow. Well, check out the newsletter anyway, because the newsletter is incredible, packed fun stuff. There's a link to it right there on the website. You can pick one up at the DS Kids Welcome Center. There's some in our guest bags for people who are first-time guests. You'll get a newsletter. It's absolutely incredible. Everything you need to know about the Grove and the Ark for the whole month.
It really is news you can use.
It is. It's called the DS Kids Download. So you can download that information and put it up in your fridge. It's got a calendar on it. It's cool.
Awesome.
Cool. The virtue we're studying this month?
In April?
In April?
No.
Is joy.
Oh, that's right.
Joy. I've got the definition. Finding a way to be happy even when things don't go your way. A lot of times we attribute the virtue of joy to the emotion of happiness. And so many times in Scripture, joy, it says count it all joy when you fall into trials and temptations. So I'm supposed to be happy, it's hard to be happy. But joy, I think, is something so much far beyond the emotion of happiness.
Sure.
It's the whole finding your happiness, knowing it's rooted in Jesus. And so we're going to have a lot of fun studying the month of April, the virtue of joy.
So there's something there for me to learn as well.
You know what? That's incredible. You're exactly right. As a mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, or uncle, there's something you can learn in the Grove about joy. I find that every week I go in there and I'm convicted about something that I haven't learned in my life. That some virtue that I hadn't quite mastered that. I hadn't quite got it.
Sure.
So, we believe in shared experience, where that it's important for parents to experience what their kids are experiencing. That way they get to go home, they get to talk about it. In fact, I've heard some incredible stories just this week alone about kids who showed the virtue of courage, which was our virtue from last month, and how they were able to do things that scared them. There's still some pretty scary things coming on in their lives, and they're able to know that they can be brave in the face of fear. In fact, one of the things we talked about is without fear, there's no way to show courage. So in a way, fear is a gift to us, so we can show courage and show that we understand that God's with us, no matter what. We studied last month the Daniel in the lion's den, how he showed courage. Queen Esther, how she showed courage standing up to King Xerxes. So lots of cool stuff.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's awesome. But lots of cool stuff, and we're going to a lot of great stories coming our way about how you show joy in the midst of hard times and tough times. So something everybody can learn. We hope to see you there. Okay, we thought we'd take some time over these next at least 5 podcasts to go over the 5 things we believe every kid needs to know. Now, I'm sure you've heard me say the 5 things every kid needs to know over. If you've been at Dayspring for any length of time, you've heard at one point me talk about the 5 things every kid needs to know. Real quickly, the 5 things that we believe every kid needs to know, and for that fact, everybody needs to know, is there's a really big God they can trust no matter what. There's somebody who believes what they believe. There's someone who believes what their parents believe. There is nosy parents who are involved in their lives spiritually. and that they have uncommon sense to make the wise choice. Those are the 5 things that we believe every kid needs to know. We're going to focus just this month on the first one, that there's a really big God they can trust no matter what. That's also one of our big 3 that we talk about every week in the Grove and in the children's ministry in general. You know, I was trying to think in my life, and it wasn't really too hard, about trusting God, the times I've had to trust God. You know, that's a fundamental principle that we all have to have. You know, as an adult, I went without a job for 9 months. And I really learned what it meant to trust God.
Wow.
In that time. You know, we had to trust Him for our mortgage payment. We had to trust Him for our food. We had to, we had to trust Him even in our relationships with each other, because you get a little grumpy when you go 9 months without a job. And you get a little desperate at times. But, we trusted God in that process, and time and again, He proved Himself to me. So that's, that to me, that's a no-brainer.
Don't you think it's easier to trust God then, when you trusted God in smaller situations before?
Exactly.
Isn't that kind of like what this is all about?
Exactly. And being able to talk to the kids about trusting God in those simple things, those easy things, when they get to become adults, they're able to fall back on that. Scripture is very plain and simple when it tells us to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That is a basic principle that we tend to gloss over or forget a lot. But I believe that if we over and over again talk to these kids about trusting God no matter what. There's a really big God they can trust no matter what. There's a really, really, really big God they can trust no matter what. If you get that into their hearts and minds, when they are faced with things, even now, before they become adult, they can go, you know what? There's a really big God I can trust. He's bigger than this problem, and He can take care of any situation. So that's one of the 5 things we believe. We talk about those things over and over again. And it's just one of the things we really believe in here at Dayspring, about kids and families need to understand that concept, and they can always rely on that principle.